You are about to hear Mao Tse Tung on Guerrilla Warfare, narrated by William Heschel. Introduction 1. The nature of revolutionary guerrilla war. The guerrilla campaigns being waged in China today are a page in history that has no precedent. Their influence will be confined not solely to China in her present anti-Japanese struggle, but will be worldwide. Mao Tse Tung, Yu Chi Chen, 1937. At one end of the spectrum, ranks of electronic boxes buried deep in the earth hungrily consume data and spew out endless tapes. Scientists and engineers confer in air-conditioned offices. Missiles are checked by intense men who move about them silently, almost reverently. In 40 minutes, countdown begins. At the other end of this spectrum, a tired man wearing a greasy felt hat, a tattered shirt, and soiled shorts is seated, his back against a tree, barrel pressed between his knees, butt resting on the moist earth between sandaled feet, is a Browning automatic rifle. Hooked to his belt, 2 dirty canvas sacks, one holding 3 homemade bombs, the other 4 magazines loaded with .30 caliber ammunition. Draped around his neck, a sausage-like cloth tube with 3 days' supply of rice. The man stands, raises a water bottle to his lips, rinses his mouth, spits out the water. He looks about him carefully, corks the bottle, slaps the stock of the Browning 3 times, pauses, slaps it again twice, and disappears silently into the shadows. In 40 minutes, this group of 15 men will occupy a previously prepared ambush. It is probable that guerrilla war, nationalist and revolutionary in nature, will flare up in one or more of half of a dozen countries during the next few years. These outbreaks may not initially be inspired, organized, or led by local communists. Indeed, it is probable that they will not be, but they will receive the moral support and vocal encouragement of international communism, and where circumstances permit, expert advice and material assistance as well. As early as November 1949, we had this assurance from China's number 2 communist, Liu Shaoqi, when speaking before the Australian Trade Unions Conference in Peking. He prophesied that there would be other Asian revolutions that would follow the Chinese pattern. We paid no attention to this warning. In December 1960, delegates of 81 communist and workers' parties resolved that the tempo of wars of liberation should be stepped up. A month later, January 6, 1961, the Soviet premier, an unimpeachable authority on national liberation wars, propounded an interesting series of questions to which he provided equally interesting answers. Is there a likelihood of such wars recurring? Yes, there is. Are uprisings of this kind likely to recur? Yes, they are. But wars of this kind are popular uprisings. Is there the likelihood of conditions in other countries reaching the point where the cup of this popular patience overflows and they take to arms? Yes, there is such a likelihood. What is the attitude of the Marxists to such uprisings? A most favorable attitude. These uprisings are directed against the corrupt reactionary regimes, against the colonialists. The communists support just wars of this kind wholeheartedly and without reservations. World Marxist Review, January 1961. Implicit is the further assurance that any popular movement infiltrated and captured by the communists will develop an anti-Western character, definitely tinged, in our own hemisphere at least, with a distinctive anti-American coloration. This should not surprise us if we remember that several hundred millions less fortunate than we have arrived, perhaps reluctantly, at the conclusion that the Western people are dedicated to the perpetuation of the political, social, and economic status quo. In the not-too-distant past, many of these millions looked hopefully to America, Britain, or France for help in the realization of their justifiable aspirations. But today many of them feel that these aims can be achieved only by a desperate revolutionary struggle that we will probably oppose. This is not a hypothesis. It is fact. A potential revolutionary situation exists in any country where the government consistently fails in its obligation to ensure
Sample complete. Ready to continue?